regardless of whether an eclipse is hitting a planet or some point in your chart, it's always going to be going through a house. And the way eclipses work, there's usually 3 eclipses, possibly 4, but usually 3 eclipses in succession in each house. Because what happens is, it takes the nodes of the moon where eclipses happen 18 months, 1.5 years to go through a sign. So all the eclipses that are happening within a 1.5 year period on average are going to be in the same signs, which means in the same houses in your chart. So if you have an eclipse in your 5th house, then probably for 1.5 years, the eclipses are all going to be falling in your 5th house. Now it's possible one might, be in somewhere slightly different, a house before or a house after, but these eclipses are happening to us in blocks of time of about 1.5 years. And so during that 1.5 year period, we're very much concentrated on developing that house. All right? So the first time an eclipse starts going into your house, the first eclipse that goes in your house, okay, this is starting this huge process of huge change in respect to that house. And that's going to not resolve until the final eclipse gets done. And like I said, usually it's 3, but it can be 4, in which case it's a 2-year process, depending exactly where the sun or moon and falling are compared to Rahu or Ketu, the nodes of the moon. So I wanted to talk about the themes that are happening when an eclipse is going through your house. So if this is happening, you go, okay, I've got about 1.5 years of this is a huge focus of my life. Okay? So starting with the 1st and 7th house. If we have an eclipse in the 1st house or any house, the next eclipse 2 weeks later will usually be in the opposite house. Because one happens at new moon, one happens at full moon, and those are opposite each other. And so I'm going to talk about these results in respect to house axes. So 1, 7, 2nd, 8th house, and so on. Because you're not just going to experience 3 eclipses in the 1st house, you're going to get 3 in the 1st, 3 in the 7th, in the same 1.5 year period. Okay? So these eclipses are always impacting these axes of our houses. All right? These opposite houses. So when you have a series of eclipses over a 1.5 year period falling in your 1st and 7th house, the changes are about, yes, you're obviously going to change. Your path, which is your 1st house, is going to change. But it's going to change in respect to other people, which means other people are going to be a consideration in that. The 7th house, the people you want in your life, your partners, are going to come into that scenario too. And what's happening here is a person is finding themselves because of the 1st house eclipses, but they're also discovering new things about their relationships, their relationship needs, and most traumatically, this is often a time where we discover how our behavior, which is self, is dramatically impacting our relationships for better or ill. And also where we'll see how other people's behaviors is dramatically impacting us for better or worse. So during these eclipses that are falling across the 1st, 7th house axis, it's 1.5 years to 2 years theme of how we're getting impacted by other people, how, because we live in a world of people and we want some of these people, what are we willing to do in our lives for that? What do we want to become for that? What sacrifices do we want to make for that? What do we need other people to give? What do we need other people to sacrifice for us, and so on? Okay? So it's not just a self-theme or relationship theme, it's how these 2 factors are impacting each other. Okay? When an eclipse is falling in the 2nd, 8th house axis, well, the 2nd house is your wealth, 8th house is other people's wealth. 2nd house is what you have, 8th house is what other people have. All right? So now it's about developing your resources, but also understanding what you need from other people, which is your 8th house. I need this from this person. I need this from that person. Trying to figure out how to get those things as well. So ultimately, the goal is that you become more self-sufficient, you become more resourceful, and part of being more resourceful is being able to better benefit from other people's resources, which is the 8th house. One of the funny things about the 8th house is that we don't understand that the 8th house is also a resource for us. So if a resourceful person uses everything as a resource, including what other people have to offer. Sometimes when people have an afflicted second house, one of the funny things they do, they'll try to be super self-sufficient, and they don't want to benefit from other people's resources. But really being self-sufficient acknowledges the truth that we're humans, we're tribal animals, we need things from other people. No one can do everything, have everything they need. And that's why we have companions, people we trade with, and so on. And the stuff and the goods we get from them is always the 8th house. So eclipse falling across your second 8th house is very much about understanding the value of your resources and also the value of other people's resources. What this does is it makes you more valuable in other people's lives, and it makes other people more valuable in your life. The 8th house is the bonds we make with people. It's the people we decide, it's the reasons we decide to keep people in our life. The second house are the things we keep in our life. But the 8th house is like, I'm bonding to this person because they provided a need. And now there's an attachment, there's a bond being created. Afflicted 8th houses are not able to make long-term bonds with people. Okay? There's something always comes along that shatters that bond. So it is about learning that, to be mutually resourceful with other people. I'm a resource to them, they're a resource to me. And also the capacity to bond to other people, but also becoming something that's more valuable in other people's lives. That's the kind of theme you see when you have an eclipse across the second and 8th house. That's the common theme. Now there's also the 8th house has an occult aspect to it, where you start looking below the surface. The second house is a very material house. It's like, I have to deal with concrete things here that have to do with my body and my well-being. These are very concrete things. The 8th house is where you're dealing with all those unconcrete things that deal with your psyche, though. All right? And these two also mirror each other. So the other thing that happens when you have eclipse themes through the second and 8th house, when those eclipses are falling there, is yes, you're dealing with your physical needs, second house, but those physical needs are mirrored by your emotional needs, your 8th house, the needs of your psyche. A person with an unhealthy psyche needs to have a lot of material things to make their psyche feel supported and grounded, right? A person with a nice, healthy, safe, secure psyche, which is a good 8th house, doesn't need a lot of material second house things to hold on to, including people, to have people close. People can have a very fragile psyche, and so they always need somebody close. It's not love, it's just it lets their psyche feel supported, for instance. So there's this other thing going on with the second 8th house eclipses of developing a healthier psyche, and therefore developing a healthier relationship to your material things, possession, money, the people you keep close. And that's a very huge theme, all right? Now when we go to an eclipse between the 3rd and 9th house, we have the 9th house, which is everything you learn from everyone else, from teachers, from books, from YouTube videos. You're taking information in from another being at the 9th house. At the 3rd house is where you test that information, though. You try it. You put it you try it with your skill, your intelligence. You see how well you can use it, how much more you can even improve it. And now you're testing what the teacher says. So eclipses across the 3rd and 9th house axis, yes, you're going to learn things, but it's also time to test things and try things. And through that, a person comes out with working truths. Somebody can just show up at the 9th house and say, yeah, the truth is, and you go, okay, the truth is, and you just, is it really? Is it a working truth? It's not until we apply it through our 3rd house that we find out if it's a working truth. So essentially, eclipses to the 3rd and 9th house allow us to develop a working truth in our life. It's a very, very nice eclipse. It's more gentle than many of the other eclipses that we could have, actually. So, working truth. Yes, learning, but finding out what really works. Throwing out knowledge that doesn't work, developing knowledge that does work, even coming up with one's own ideas. 3rd house is a person who can also, through research and testing and trying things, comes up with their new own ideas. It might be based on the teachings that they heard, something they learned, but then they tweak it and tune it to make it better through the 3rd house. So eclipses in that axis are really about developing working truths, working knowledge, better information, refining one's knowledge and information. Okay? Third house is also the house of our associates, our teammates, our siblings. Basically the person we're doing something with at any moment. And the ninth house, of course, our teachers, our parents as a unit, which are sort of like teach us through example in the first part of our lives. And it's also the law, okay? And the third house is, the associate. So we've got these two forces that are giving us different information. So your parents and the law and the culture says one thing, that's the ninth house. But then you get together with people and you come up with these other ideas with your associates, your siblings. And when kids do this, they get into trouble lots of times, right? They get together and they go, you know what, we could try this. And next thing you know, they're breaking the law, or doing something not supposed to and their parents scold them. So that's another aspect of the third and ninth house. So this is where we're testing the law at the third house too. We're testing the rules at the third house to see if we want to follow those rules. And if enough people get together and decide these rules aren't cool, that's the third house. Then you get associates, and then you get teammates, and you get more people saying, yeah, we don't want to do it that way. And then there's a possibility of breaking free to a new rule set. So this is also something that happens. You can say rebellions start at the third house, You got the ninth house, which is the law. And you got the third house, which is people in a pub hanging out with a bunch of people in the pub talking about how shitty things are. And they start coming up with ideas. Hey, what if we did this? What if we did this? Well, let's try it and see what happens. Next thing you know, more and more people are like, let's try this. And then a law gets changed, right? So that's also a way we test the so-called truth of things, all right? So you might find when you have eclipses across the third, ninth house axis, you start getting disgruntled and frustrated with the rules you have to follow, with the expectations of your parents, with the expectations of your culture. And then you're going to start talking about it and find support in that and possibly make changes in how you live, how you go down the road of your life. That's another thing that tends to happen with eclipses in the third and ninth houses. Okay? And of course, ninth house is where we journey long-term journeys for information. Third house is short-term journeys for information, to learn something or to experience something. So yes, you can make lots of journeys to test things and experience things with eclipses crossing the third and ninth house axes. Okay? Both long-term journeys, which are ninth, and short-term journeys, which is third. All right? All right. You can also, okay, enough on that. Okay, so now we go to the fourth and fifth house axis. This can be a very powerful axis because eclipses, particularly solar eclipses, as they get to your 10th house cusp, can really change your material life in the context of the power you have to command and run your material life. Okay? 10th house is the person who's in charge in the world. And so you can have promotions, success, opportunities to have more responsibility, essentially, with eclipses in the 10th house, especially the solar eclipses. And what's happening with eclipses across the 4th and 10th house axis is we're trying to find the balance between the karmas, the things I have to do, and the needs I have, which is the 4th house. Okay? The needs I have for peace, rest, recuperation, even, luxury, as in, okay, I get to luxuriate and relax, like relaxing type luxury, not necessarily expensive luxury. The 10th house is where we have power and we impact things. The 4th house is us being open to being impacted by things, basically. So the 10th house is the person in charge, and as they go in charge, people are going to have feelings about that. The 4th house is the feelings we have about the things happening around us. All right? And eclipses across these 4th and 10th house axes are developing the power, the 10th house, to have more control over what's happening around us and therefore how we feel. Okay? If we have more power, more material command, we can have a better home. We can have a quieter home. We can have a home where we want. The 10th house is Artha house. It's a house of material well-being. It's where we do the work to get the material goods, right? We get a promotion, we get more money, we start a new business, we get more money. Now we have opportunities to go into the home life. And of course, the 4th house is the first place people spend that extra income from a new job, right? They get a new car, 4th house. They get a new home, 4th house, or a first home, 4th house. Because that's like one of the best uses is. So we're doing more in the world at the 10th house. And then we want to feel good. And we want to have the thing that makes us feel good, that gives us space, that gives us room to unwind and relax and enjoy ourselves. And that's the 4th house. So what a person's learning during this time is how to become a stronger force in the world so that they can give themselves the feeling they want to, which is the 4th house. All right, whatever that feeling is they want to have. You know, when we have more power in the world, we have more power to give ourselves the feeling we want, right? Okay. And the space, you know, the home, the space that feels good to us, that we want to be in, that feels good to us. So yes, questions on home, questions on career. These are the things that will be changing. And the goal of these eclipses is to make you a more powerful person in your world, where you have more authority in that world. And now you have more control over your space, your environment, and everything else that makes you feel that life is good or life sucks. Okay? So it's a very, very important eclipse for a person. And it can start out with the 4th house eclipse, where a person going like, gosh, I don't feel like this anymore. I don't want this. This doesn't feel good to me. And then the eclipse goes over the 10th house. It's like, okay, what are you going to do about it? Okay? Or the eclipses can start in the 10th house, and the person's like, okay, I have the chance to do more now, to have more material power. I'm going to take that power. The 4th house eclipse comes along. It's like, no, now I can do this. I can fix my space. I can get my new car, whatever the case may be. I can move to that place I always wanted to move. That's the kind of stuff to expect with this, over this 1.5 to 2 year period of eclipses going through the 4th and 10th axis. And what's really cool about these eclipses, it's literally a period of huge change where you have 3 eclipses. And 3 will be lunar, 3 will be solar. And they will be, so, you know, they'll all be due to different eclipse cycles. They'll all be teaching us a different thing that we need to learn to achieve a better experience of the axis, the house axis that's being triggered by the eclipses. Okay? All right, then we go to the 5th and 11th house. So the 5th house is what you want to express, what you're excited about, what you're thinking about all the time, what you want to do all the time, you know, what you want to create, what you want to express. And this is what I want to do this, okay? And the 11th house is the group, the peers, and their response and reaction to everything, okay? So you love something and you want to do it. That's the 5th house, okay? The 11th house is the love you get from other people. So you love something, you want to do it, and do people love you or not? That's the 11th house. Do you get accepted for that or not? Do people invite you over because you're doing that, or do they shun you because you're doing that? That's the 5th and 11th house. So during the eclipses in the 5th and 11th, yes, there's a greater need to do something that is meaningful to you, that you're inspired to do. Key word of the 5th house. It's the house of inspired creativity that's consistent and stable. So this is really what you want to do, what you want to, what makes you feel alive, basically, okay? And you want to do it because you love doing it. And we have to balance, when eclipses are in these 2 houses, the things we love to do for the realities of the people we're surrounded by. Okay? So, you know, we might love to do something a certain way, but it might not be accepted. So we might have to modify it. We might have to adapt it, adjust it to where it's an acceptable level. You know how some people, they get so excited and so into something that they manage to drive everyone away? That's a problematical 11th house, right? Okay? And then you get people who don't do anything exciting, yet everyone invites them into their space. That's a troubled 5th house, but a nice 11th house, okay? So while we're having eclipses across the 5th and 11th house, we're trying to improve both these houses, which means do more of what we love and get more respect, more love, more appreciation from other people at the same time. And that sometimes means adapting and adjusting to what they can handle, or what they can accept, what they can manage at that time. And other times it means doing something different that we love, losing the love of a group of people, and attracting the love and attention and respect of a group of another people. Okay? The foundation of this is really the 5th house. It's about doing what we love and seeing how that changes our social group, the people who appreciate us and want to hang out with us because of this thing we're doing that we love. Okay? People get together to do and talk about the things they love, right? That's why we have social groups, which is the 11th house. Sometimes what happens when eclipses happen along this axis, a person for some reason might get rejected from their social group. They might become shunned for some reason. And this becomes an opportunity for them to question, what do I really want to be doing? Do I really want to be doing that? Wow, actually I really want to be doing this. And they discover something they love more, and they might discover how, because they were plugged into that social group, they kept doing something that maybe they wish they had quit doing 5 years ago, because they'd rather be doing this, and now the opportunity is perfect to do something else they love. So there's changes, growth in the context of doing what a person loves, and how that impacts the respect, love, appreciation they get from others, and the group of people that actually do respect, love, and appreciate them. Okay? Then with the final axis is the 6th and 12th house axis. This is a really interesting axis because these houses are very, very different, it seems, at first. Okay? We got the 6th house, which is house of work, and life is hard, and so I have to do these hard things, I have to struggle to survive, and I have to pay my bills, and I have to stay healthy, and the world is a hard place, and I have to put all this energy into it at the 6th house. And the 12th house is, I'm going on vacation. I'm not doing nothing. I'm in the hospital, everyone's doing everything for me. I'm in prison, everyone's managing everything for me, I don't have to think about anything. And then you go, I'm in the ashram, everything's kind of taken care of. It creates this environment where I can just meditate. That's the 12th house. 6th house is, I'm working 70 hours a week, so much to do, right? So, or else. That's the 6th house. I have to do this or else, okay? And in our lives, we have all these ideas, I have to do this or else. A lot of them are bullshit ideas, Yes, there's certain things we have to do or else. But then our troubled little psyches create all kinds of or else's that we think we have to do stuff for that really aren't in our business, and we overwork. Okay? And then the person goes into the bad end of the 12th house. They do get sick and hospitalized. They do get chronic fatigue syndrome and can't get out of bed for 6 months, They are exhausted, which is the 12th house. They do need to sleep 12 hours a day, which is the 12th house. That's the undesirable part of the 12th house. The 12th house, healthy part is getting away to be with oneself, to be in a space of getting in deeper in touch with oneself, one's ideas, one's creativity, with whatever's important to them, their loved ones, whatever it is that's important to them. The luxury of getting away from the pressures to where they can just experience something deeper than they can during the hectic moments of the day. That's the 12th house. And eclipses across this, the person starts questioning, how hard am I working? How much energy, 6th house, am I putting out? And for what? And are these valid things? I mean, I'm working like so hard, but do I really have to? Is it really an or else situation that if I don't do this, it's the end of the world, or I'll be on the streets, or I'll be starved? Or do I just think I have to prove myself here, take care of this person, manage this over here, when I really maybe don't even need to spend all that energy out there. So a person with eclipses in this period starts questioning how they're using their energy. How much struggle do they have to really go through? How much struggles do they have to overcome? Only the ones that are struggles, okay, that really matter, that really are an or else. And the sixth house is a material house, which means you don't have to do it unless not doing it makes you sick, or unless not doing it makes you financially broke, or unless not doing it gets you an enemy in your life, or allows an enemy, which is sixth house, to overcome you. Those are the only things you have to do, or else you're really in trouble from a sixth house point of view. But then the psyche will create all these other things. Oh, and I have to do this or else. Oh no, what do people think if I don't do this? That's the kind of garbage that we start letting go of when an eclipse crosses into the sixth house, okay? Now, at the same time, we're having eclipses fall in the 12th house, which is like, okay, 12th house is one of my favorite meanings of the 12th house is the gain of the last desire. You're dying tomorrow, you have one last thing you want, what is it? It's the 12th house that gives you that, okay? So eclipses to the 12th house, we start thinking, what is the one thing I really just want at the end, It's like all this, but what's the thing that matters most? That if I only could have one thing, what would it be? Because the 12th house is trying to conserve energy. 6th house has to put all this energy out to survive. The 12th house is like, let's rest. Let's conserve energy. Let's be passive. Let's be immobile. Okay? We see this in the animal kingdom. There are such good examples of this. If they're not young little puppies or young little lions or little coyotes or something like that, what animals do is they go out and they struggle to find their food. That's the 6th house. They struggle to build their nest, their den, which is 6th house. Now their bodies are going to stay alive. Mission accomplished on the 6th house. And then they sleep. They rest. Because nature knows that resting is critical so that when energy is needed, it's present. Because see, all these animals don't just get to go to the refrigerator and all this food is there. They just can't go to the store and get all this food. They need to use their energy to stay alive. Primitive people also needed to use their energy to stay alive. Now, we use most of our energy for not staying alive, for other things. Okay? People who don't have a lot of interest, they don't use their energy for a lot of things. And the human brain, all brains of creatures on Earth, are designed to rest when it's not necessary to do something else. And that's why it's so easy for people to slip into sedentary life. In a world where we were in nature and we needed to conserve energy because there's always a lack of food, and at any moment we might have to deal with some hardships, or there might be a drought and there's no food for a while, conserving energy is key to survival. And that's why all animals and primitive cultures rest a lot. Okay? When there's a chance, you rest. There's usually not enough chances, so much to do. But when there's a chance, you take it. Humans still want to do that now. So we want to rest when we can. The problem is we have refrigerators, we have grocery stores. So we can eat all this food, a lot of this food which is garbage, and then we're resting all the time and not burning it all off. And then of course, people become obese, people get heart disease, people get all kinds of diseases. When we don't have a proper ratio of energy out to resting, essentially. Okay? So, one of the funny things about modern man needs to discipline himself to get up and burn more energy. Something primitive people never had a problem with. So one of the things that can happen with eclipses across the 6th and 12th house is it's like, okay, you got to start doing more, working harder with your body, 6th house. burn more energy with your body so it's healthier and stronger and more able. And reduce some of the rest of the 12th house maybe. Okay? And actually get to a point of needed rest, because the body's actually tired and needs to actually rest. Okay? And that's why eclipses in the 6th house will have an impact on health. Diet and exercise are the two main ways we start working on health through the 6th house. All right? And sometimes eclipses there, it happens because the person needs to make an adjustment. They need to slow down, and sometimes they need to speed up, depending what habit they've gone into. All right? And it comes down again to, how am I using the energy, at the 6th house? This is this energy to struggle, and because we have to get things done. Are we using the energy for the right things? Okay? Or are we not using enough of that energy? The struggle to survive in a primitive world requires physical motion. It required at least 4 miles of walking every day by everyone in a tribe to survive. How many people walk 4 miles a day now? If you don't, we have to get disciplined when there's an eclipse in this house and start walking at least 4 miles a day. Okay? So we live in a funny world these days, okay? In a primitive society, eclipse in the 6th is like, we're figuring out ways to bring the water closer so we don't have to walk 10 miles a day, And now we get to enjoy the 12th house more and lay around more and conserve more energy. Now in our lives, so much of our energy, things we're struggling for, that we're like, oh my God, I can't believe this happened, and it's not a big deal. Like our computer's not working, we're so pissed at it because we want to watch something on it. Now we can't. Now there's this big fight, 6th house, to get our computer working, right? Or else what? Are you going to die because you don't watch that? No. So it's really not a 6th house thing, but we act like it is. Then we end up staying up late, not getting enough rest, ruining our 12th house, wake up cranky the next morning, and so on. So eclipses across this axis are about a person getting clear, what do I really have to do? What do I really have to spend my energy on? What do I want to be really present and receptive to experience? Meaning, what do I want to have the energy to experience? So I'm ready for it. I'm rested for it, which is 12th house. So the 12th house is right before your 1st house. 1st house is birth. You jump up and go, yeah, here I am. Okay? 1st house is also the house of waking up. Okay? And the 12th house is where we're resting so that we have the energy to wake up to the next day, wake up to the next experience. And eclipses across this axis, like, what do I really want to have the energy to wake up for? And I want to make sure I get the rest for that. If I'm always so strung out and so busy, so much in the 6th house, that the things I really want to do, when there's an opportunity, I'm like, I'm too stressed, I'm too tired, and you don't do them. So there's this balance that has to be found between the energy burnt and what a person wants to experience, and therefore, what are they going to burn their energy on? What are they going to stop wasting energy on so they can be rested and ready to experience the things that they want to? Okay? And that's really, really important. Otherwise, we don't get the thing we want at the end of the day, the end of the life, which is the 12th house. Okay? An imbalanced 6th house is what keeps people from doing all the things that prepares them to do, that gets them into the place to be ready and able and capable of doing what they really want to do. Okay? Of course, the 12th house is the house of deep meditation and contemplation, and the 6th house is our house of material struggles. So that's a good example of this, where we struggle, have to do our work so we can survive and have food and shelter. As soon as that's done, now we can go meditate, 12th house. So it's a balance between activity that has to be done, 6th house, and passive activity, rest, meditation, and so on. And that 12th house is essentially what we want. It's where we prepare ourselves to be ready for what we want. So, the best athletes I know, what they do is they train, they come home, and they sit around and watch TV and eat food all night long. And they're resting all the time. And the next day they get up and they train. My problem when I was an athlete, I would wake up, I'd do all this stuff with my mind, I would go train, I would come home and do all this stuff with my mind. We can burn as many calories, we can burn as much energy with our minds as we can exercising. A chess champion in a long 3-week chess tournament will burn as many calories as a Tour de France racer in the Tour de France bike race. Wow, the brain can burn so many calories, so much energy. So of course, I thought I was resting, but I was always burning energy with my mind. And so I would go through periods where I would end up being exhausted for a month and my legs were just so tired I could hardly even race. And I did that every year. I got to this place where I just was dead tired because I never rested. And I noticed, wait, these people, they just sit around and watch TV. They're actually resting, you know. But I could never get into that lifestyle, and that is the number one thing that ruined my career as an athlete, is my brain would not stop burning calories, okay? So the 12th house is where we take the kind of rest that we need to get what we really want to wake up for, so we're ready. And we don't want to spend all of our energy thinking this has to be done at the 6th house when it's something that really doesn't have to be done, okay? So this is the kind of thing that's happening at the 6th, 12th house. I feel like it's the most confusing axis to have an eclipse because these houses are so very different. But if you make everything a 6th house thing, I have to do this or else, even things that don't need to be done, then you're never going to get any 12th house rest. You're never going to get into the place to enjoy and do and be the things you really want to be. We do that when we go over to the 12th house. This is a very important part of the 12th house that people don't often talk about. Okay? Even when we meditate, it's a kind of rest, meaning space away from the stress of the world that gets a person what they want, which is God connection. Okay? All right. So that's really, I guess that's it. That's all 12 houses, 6 axes. So those are some themes you can look for when you have a cycle of eclipses. Again, these are long themes, 1.5, maybe 2-year series of eclipses where you'll be working on that house axis. And once the eclipses are out of it, you'll be living that house axis very differently. Okay? It might take to the last eclipse in there to live it out fully, to grasp it fully, to learn everything from it. But this is how our houses get dramatically changed in 1.5 year to 2-year periods. Okay, so it's very important. All right, thank you.